I hope you had a restful and relaxing spring break. Miss Millay and Miss Horn and I did, and we are ready to get back for these next 10 days of NTI instruction. This is considered day 11 of your NTI. We had 2 days off and then 8 days of learning, so 8 and 2 is 10, and then we have day 11. So today, you actually have Module 5 assessment today. And so we're going to do a Module 5 quick review so that you can rock your assessment out, okay? Some of you will be doing it on Google Classroom in the Module 5 Google form, and then there are 8 of you who will be doing this at home on your paper copy, okay? So everybody can get there. You can pause the video if you want, get your notebook ready, and we're going to quickly review volume, area, and geometry. And you can press play whenever you've got your notebook ready to go. All right, now that you've got your notebook ready to go, you should have Module 5 review on the top, and we're going to start out with volume. So if you can remember, when we learned about volume, we learned 2 different formulas. So we can do length, remember you can write all this down, times width, times height. And some of the things that you're going to see on your test are going to look like this, okay? So for example, you would want to count the length of your prism, which would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have 5 times the width would be 1, 2, 3, 4. So 5 times 4. And then the height, 1, 2, 3. Okay? And for example, we would multiply 5 times 4, which equals 20. And then we have 20 times 3, which equals 60. And if you can remember, we talked about how if those were in inches or centimeters or yards, whatever that may be, we know that inch times inch equals cubic inches, or you could write inches to the 3rd power. In this case, our prism that we saw didn't have any measurements on it, and so we would just say cubic units or 60 units cubed, okay? And the other part of volume that we learned was that sometimes, this is the best part, they already do some of the work for you. And when I'm saying that, they already do the length times the width, and that is called base area. And they already have done the base area for you, and you just have to multiply that by the height. So instead of a 2-step multiplication problem, if you see a prism that already gives you base area, you just have to do a 1-step multiplication problem and multiply it by the height. As basic as that. And then your units would still be, so let's say that they already found base area for you and it was 40 square units, because remember, if I do unit times unit, I only have square units. And if we multiply that, let's say the height is 4 units, our units would still be written as 40 times 4 equals 160 cubic units. Okay, so the units are written the exact same even when you find the volume this way. All right, next, we had a lot of people who struggled with our area with fractional side lengths, so we're going to discuss that for just a second. And so if you can remember, area equals length times width. And we don't have the height there because it's only a 2D shape. Area is 2D while volume is 3D. And that means dimension, 3-dimensional. Okay, dimensions, length, width, height. Area is 2D, 2-dimensional. It only has length and width. And so, again, going back to your 3rd and 4th grade years, you all learned to count the squares. So that's why we have square units. So inches times inches will equal square inches. I don't think you all had a problem with this. I think you all had a problem with multiplying mixed numbers or multiplying improper fractions. So we're going to quickly do one problem for you to sort of refresh that memory. So let's say we have a length of 3 1/4 inches by a width of, and let's just say they write it improper. Let's just say they have 7/2 inches, okay? And they can do that. They can really pick whatever they want for you. So in this case, we want to make sure this mixed number is written as an improper fraction so that we can do numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator. So we learned that these wholes are worth 4/4. So we have 4/4 plus 4/4 plus 4/4 plus 1/4, okay? Or, many of us learned, you can do 3 times 4, which is 12. Add your numerator, 12 plus the 1 equals 13, and your denominator stays. And now if you notice, this is already ready to go for you. So we have, so again, this could have been done by 4/4 plus 4/4 plus 4/4 plus 1/4, which equals 13/4, or you could have multiplied whole number times denominator plus the numerator, which equals 13, and your denominator stays the same. So either way, we got 13/4 both ways, okay, over 4, all right? Now, so we're going to do 13 times 7. 7 times 3 is 21. 7 times 1 is 7, plus 2 is 9. So our numerator is going to be 91, and 4 times 2 is 8. We are not leaving this like this, and you'll notice on your test that we're not leaving this like this. You need to write an answer, okay? So 91 divided by 8. 8 goes into 8 goes into 9 one time because it gets you to 8. 9 minus 8 is 1. Bring down your 1. 8 goes into 11 one time because it gets you to 8, and we end up with remainder 3. So this equals 11 3/8. So when I go back up here to write my final answer, I have 11 3/8 inches times inches equals square inches, or you could write 11 3/8 inches squared. Okay? So you've got to make sure you're multiplying correctly and that you're dividing correctly. And then this is your whole, this is your numerator, and your denominator stays the same. Eighths, okay? So you got to make sure that you're writing all of those things correctly, all right? Okay, so there's your volume and area review, and now we're just going to quickly chat about each of the types of geometry, each of the types of quadrilaterals. So remember, a quadrilateral, remember you can be writing all these things down, is a polygon with 4 sides, okay? Now, the first one we learned about was the trapezoid, and you should already have all of these notes written down in your notebook from Module 5. All of you, every single one of you received some type of information about trapezoids. So we talked about the trapezoid that could have 2 right angles in it. We talked about the trapezoid that could just have, you know, that at least 1 pair of parallel sides. So remember, it's at least 1 pair of parallel sides. And then we talked about the isosceles trapezoid, and that's when it has a pair of equal sides. So those hash marks are me telling you, or telling the person, that this side and this side are equal. And so this was called the isosceles trapezoid because it had 1 pair of equal sides. You could have even said 2 equal sides. Either way, we would have accepted both. The next one we talked about was the parallelogram, and there were 4 types because these quadrilaterals have 2 pair of parallel sides. And this is actually the symbol for parallel in math, if you wanted to know that. This is the symbol for perpendicular. So if this is the symbol for perpendicular, this is the symbol for parallel. So that is not 11, that means parallel. The rectangle is a parallelogram because it has 2 pair of parallel sides. The square, oops, that looks a little funky, sorry about that, but this is a square, you get my drift. The square is a parallelogram. The rhombus was a parallelogram. Sorry, let me get that focused. And sorry, this one is a square. So a rectangle, a square, a rhombus, and this is actually called a parallelogram. The parallelogram is called a parallelogram. All of these have two pair of parallel sides. Okay? The next one that we talked about were the rectangle and the rhombus. Right? So the rectangle, there could be two of the rectangles. So there was the rectangle itself, which we all know. And then the square could also, sorry, that's still off again. Sorry, it's equal sides. You catch my drift. The square could also be called a rectangle because it has those attributes of a rectangle. It has two pair of equal sides, it has 4 right angles, and 2 pair of parallel sides. And now when we go down to the rhombus, there were 2 that could be drawn as the rhombus. First, the rhombus itself, and then the square could also be called a rhombus because it has the attributes of a rhombus. If you're starting to notice, the square is a parallelogram. The square can be called a rectangle. The square can be called a rhombus because it has those attributes of those shapes. Excuse me, of those quadrilaterals, right? The next 2 that we talked about was, move to this page, was first we talked about the square. And if you noticed, there was only one that could be called the square, and that is the square. Because it has to have all those special attributes, 4 equal sides, 4 right angles, and 2 pair of parallel sides. The last one we got to learn about was the kite. And there were 3. First, you had the actual picture of a kite that you all know about flying in the sky. And if you remember, kite had that special word adjacent. 2 pair of adjacent equal sides. That means this side and this side are equal, and this side and this side are equal. And there were 2 others that fall under that definition as well. The square has 2 pair of adjacent equal sides. This and this side are equal. This and this side are equal. Sorry about that. And then the rhombus was another kite because this side and this side are equal. This side and this side are equal. So the rhombus can be called a kite. The square can be called a kite. And the kite can be called a kite. Okay? So those were basically all of our notes for Module 5. And so I'm going to let those of you on Google Classroom, you can now move on to the Google Form, Module 5 assessment. And those of you at home, you can complete yours on the paper. All right, guys, have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow. Happy Monday again.